A member of Parliament sends a picture of his privates to a complete stranger and is then blackmailed into providing contact details of at least 18 colleagues, up to and including politicians with ministerial experience, at least 2 of whom are thought to have responded to the blackmailer with intimate photographs of their own. And the man remains not only a Conservative MP in full possession of the Tory whip, but the vice chairman of the highly influential 1922 Committee of Tory Backbenchers. There is a seaside postcard element to this story, but it is a deadly serious story. I think we may on Friday have veered very, what's the word I want? I think we may have veered pretty close to not treating this story with the respect that it demands. As soon as I provide these counterfactuals, and imagine that it was me in the situation that the MP William Wragg finds himself in, the temptation to go a bit end of pier, to go a bit seaside postcard, to go a bit sniggersome is big, isn't it? I mean, it's a considerable temptation. So I'm not going to be able to resist that temptation today. In fact, offering you the theoretical scenario of me fearful of blackmail, sending the contact details of all of my LBC colleagues to a stranger who could, for all I know, be a spy or worse. I think we need to recognise the severity of this. There was one newspaper columnist this weekend who seemed to think it was hilarious, at which point you sort of wonder how bent your brain must be not to respond a little bit more robustly to a tale, lest we forget. An essential sex trap target is the phrase that one newspaper chooses to use today as they reveal that an ex-minister is or was among the targets of William Wragg's contact on Grindr. 5 minutes after 10 is the time. 03456060973 is the number that you need. So how do you think we should do this? We had a conversation because, I mean, this is obviously an incredibly important story, and I am confused by 2 things. Number one, I am confused about the fact that William Wragg retains the Conservative whip. And number 2, I am confused about the fact that members of the media who claim to care about probity and integrity, or perhaps even, were we to coin a phrase that was popular not that long ago, integrity, professionalism and accountability, are not sharing the views of people like Andrea Jenkyns. I mean, you can tell this is a big deal when I find myself on the same side of a story as a politician as ridiculous and unpleasant as Andrea Jenkyns. But in this scenario, I'm afraid she's absolutely right. Unlike some MPs, she says, I am not happy with Wragg. As a mother with a young child who only recently had threats, it's unforgivable of him to compromise the security of fellow MPs. Action is needed. Now, even a stopped clock is right twice a day, but she is absolutely and incontrovertibly right. It is unforgivable of him to compromise the security of fellow MPs. No disciplinary action by the party. Backing from some cabinet ministers and some senior Tories. Oliver Dowden said yesterday he did not think that his colleague should step down as vice chairman of the influential 1922 committee. And Jeremy Hunt described his apology as courageous and fulsome, which suggests, among other things, that Jeremy Hunt is not entirely, unless Jeremy Hunt is being unexpectedly fork-tongued in this case, that would suggest he doesn't know exactly what the word fulsome means. Other colleagues are furious with Mr. Wragg, with some, according to reports this weekend, branding him Toe Rag. As the most felicitous or original nickname imaginable, but there it is. So how do we do this? How do we do this? We talked about it before we came on air, which we sometimes do, and the first thing you might think of would be my little coma question. Are you familiar with my coma question? So I say to you, imagine I've been asleep for 10 years and you remember what this country was like 10 years ago in 2014. I have just woken up and I'm reading a story about a prominent Conservative MP sending pictures of his privates to a complete stranger and then, when fearful of blackmail, coughing up the contact details of colleagues, it's including senior colleagues, opening them up to sex trap targeting and possibly worse, opening them up to future blackmail, because we're told, aren't we, that 3 of the people contacted responded in precisely the way that the potential blackmailer was hoping. So is it a coma question? I mean, is it a what would happen to you at work kind of question? I genuinely haven't run this by management because they're a cautious and excitable bunch, and I don't like to give them conniptions unless absolutely necessary. But just imagine for a minute, not that this was me, but that this was you. I don't know what you do for a living, but imagine that it were a job that had at least some modicum of either public profile or security, whether it's trade secrets, company secrets, whatever it might be. You send a picture of your privates to a complete stranger, and then when fearful of blackmail, you respond to protect yourself by handing over the private contact details of senior colleagues. I mean, the more I say this out loud, the Daily Mail's desperate attempts to malign Angela Rayner for possibly not paying $1.5 of capital gains tax 15 years ago. I mean, listen, I appreciate. Do you want to know a little insight into right-wing media? If you ever catch anyone in the right-wing media saying, is this a story or not, they know it isn't. Okay? So this William Wragg story, you won't catch me sitting, and for the record, I don't care whether he's Labour, Conservative or Monster Raving Loony Party. He happens to be a member of the governing party. You won't catch me sitting here saying, is this a story or isn't it? Because I know it is, and you know it is. And the mad thing is this morning that they know it is as well. The Conservative Party know it is. The Conservative client journalists currently pretending to be deeply concerned about Angela Rayner and a 15-year-old £1,500 potential overlooked payment. They know that this is a huge story. But I don't think it's dead catting. I don't like the dead cat theory. I don't think anybody is pretending to care about one story in order to distract attention from the other. Even the Mail have gone in quite hard on this. Ex-minister's furious she is first woman to reveal herself as sex trap target. So the client journalist angle is not as strong as it usually is. This is about the Tory party. This is about the Tory party not punishing somebody who has done something objectively outrageous. So I think it becomes a question of why? I think it's a question about the broader malaise. I could be wrong. Christian is in Fort William. Just flat out, I'd be sacked, he says. Well, who wouldn't be sacked? Who would? So what have you done? Just imagine the HR meeting. Come in, Mr. Wragg. Sit down. Nice to see you. Would you like a cup of tea? Thank you very much. Andrew, could you get a cup of tea for Mr. Wragg, please? Now, what's happened? We've had... What's all this about? What's all this about? Can I say that word on the radio yet? No? Intimate pictures. Intimate pics. What's all this about intimate... Well, yeah, I have actually... I'm afraid I've sent some photographs of my... John Thomas. I have sent some... Can I say that? Why can't I say that? What can I say? Penis. I've sent... Yeah, all right, let's not faff about. Let's remember what we said about the seriousness of this and the importance of resisting any seaside postcard-style temptations. I've been sending pictures of my penis to a complete stranger on a gay dating app. Okay. Better close the door. And I'm afraid that I was fearful that they might use them to... or they might expose me, if you pardon the pun. I was fearful that they might expose me. So when they asked for loads of details of colleagues, what sort of details, William? Well, you know, private mobile phone numbers. Yeah. What did you do? I handed them all out. How many? Well, we're currently aware of 18. I'll say that again, actually. I'm not doing the role play anymore. I'm talking directly to you. We're currently aware of 18. Handing over 18, basically handed over his whole contacts book. 18 individuals having their private phone number, their contact details handed over to a potential blackmailer. Andrea Jenkyns told The Telegraph, and listen, you can tell by my voice, it doesn't sit comfortably with me, siding with Andrea Jenkyns on anything. She's the one that makes a habit. I think she was one of the first lot of the 2019 intake to block me on Twitter, and she's famous mostly for flicking the V sign at voters. But she told The Telegraph, that it happened at the start of the year. She told the whips, and she says, why are they protecting Wragg? It's bizarre. I told them that he's compromised MPs, for God's sake. I'm a mother, and I don't know what that's got to do with anything, and he shouldn't be handing out anybody's numbers. How is it brave? The brave thing to do would have been to ignore the blackmail. On Friday, Dr. Luke Evans, the Tory MP for Bosworth, revealed that he'd reported to police a naked picture of a woman that he had been sent. That the messages all follow a similar pattern. A influential figure in Westminster is contacted by a person calling themselves either Charlie or Abby. They claim to have met the victim in one of Parliament's bars or at a political event before sending flirtatious messages and then naked pictures in a bid to get the MP to reciprocate. It is believed that 2 more MPs have sent pictures of themselves, raising concerns over blackmail. And it's not currently known who is behind the honeytrap messages nor what their intention is. So for the first and I think quite possibly last time in the history of this programme, Dame Andrea Jenkyns is posing the question to which I would like you to provide the answers. And here is that question. Why are they protecting Wragg? 0345 6060 973 is the number that you need. A member of Parliament sends a picture of his privates to a complete stranger and is then blackmailed into providing contact details of at least 18 colleagues, up to and including politicians with ministerial experience, at least 2 of whom are thought to have responded to the blackmailer with intimate photographs of their own. And the man remains not only a Conservative MP in full possession of the Tory whip, but the vice chairman of the highly influential 1922 Committee of Tory backbenchers. You can come at this because when they create a vacuum, they assume responsibility for whatever moves into that vacuum. I want you to tell me why you think, in answer to Andrea Jenkyns' question, why are they protecting Wragg? That's question number 1, 0345 6060 973. Question number 2, you may not know the answer to, in which case, don't ring me immediately. Have a think about it. But what would happen to you? So I'd love to talk to you if you are a civil servant, perhaps, or if you work in the diplomatic corps. Well, you'd be a civil servant as well, wouldn't you? Or you're a police officer. You have experience in a responsible job. A head teacher, perhaps. A head teacher, does that work? I don't know what you do, but and also I don't know how you know whether or not how you know what would happen to you if you did it. Because, I mean, let's be honest, it's not the kind of behaviour that we routinely indulge in, is it? But I don't know how you know what would happen to you if you did it, but I do know that you would probably expect some form of punishment. So I leave you with that thought of me somehow falling for this kind of approach, and when pressured by the blackmailer, handing over the private details of Nick Ferrari, Sheila Fogarty, Tom Swarbrick, Ian Dale, Lewis Goodall, Rachel Johnson, Emily Maitlis, David Lammy. I don't think I can get it up to 18, can I? Sangeeta Maiska, Carol Vorderman. Who else? Ollie Dugmore. I throw him into the mix. Matthew Wright. Who have I missed? Matt Fry. Crikey. That's 14. I'm still 4 shy. And I've had Clive Bull. I've handed over all of their details. Now, seriously, I know that's a slightly comical scenario, but if I came on air this morning with my job untouched, with my reputation apparently untarnished, with my colleagues, a mixture perhaps of absolutely bloody furious, completely befuddled, threatened, upset. 2 of them, and God knows which 2 it would be, had responded by sending naughty pictures of their own to the... Don't text me on that. Two of them have responded by sending naughty pictures of their own to the potential blackmailer. And I would come on air at 10 o'clock on Monday morning as if nothing had happened, my position unchanged, my status undiminished. Come on. Pull the other one. Nick Abbott. How could I forget Nick Abbott? And do you know what? He's not actually a member of the... But I'd probably throw in Chris Moyles' number as well for good measure. So that takes us up to about 16, doesn't it? So why are they protecting Wragg? And what would happen to you? 0345 6060 973. If you hit the numbers now, you will get through. But remember, This is a serious... and Ben Kentish, thank you, Esther. And Henry Riley, there you go, we've got 18. All of them, handed over, all of their numbers. And I turn up for work on Monday morning as if nothing has happened. Come off it.